The screams of children had become a distant memory in the ruins of Hanoi, 10 years after the Zelthian invasion. Major Lara Min could barely recall what childish laughter sounded like. She stood atop the crumbling remains of what had once been a proud high-rise overlooking the Red River, now a toxic, slow-moving sludge that reflected the perpetual orange haze of the sky. "Movement at checkpoint 7, came the crackling voice through her earpiece. She raised her binoculars, focusing on the distant convoy of hovering transports, their sleek obsidian hulls absorbed rather than reflected light, a signature of Zelthian engineering. "How many?" she asked, adjusting the focus. 3 carriers, might be another collection." Lara's jaw tightened. Collection was their euphemism for child abduction. The Zelthians didn't want Earth's resources or even its territory. They wanted its children. "Assemble Strike Team Delta. We intercepted the old university grounds." She slid down the fire escape, boots kicking up clouds of radioactive dust that glowed faintly in the dimming light. The city was a skeleton of its former self. Buildings half collapsed, streets cracked and overgrown with mutated flora that thrived in the altered atmosphere. Her team was waiting in the shadows of what had once been a community center. 8 fighters, the remnants of various military and civilian groups that had coalesced into the Earth Alliance. They wore mismatched armor, repurposed Zelthian tech, and expressions hardened by a decade of desperate resistance. "Rations are low," said Quinn, a scientist whose brilliance was matched only by her sardonic humor. She was small in stature, but had the sharpest mind Lara had ever encountered. "If we're going to die heroically tonight, at least we won't die hungry tomorrow." Lara didn't smile. "We're not dying tonight." She unfolded a tattered map on a broken slab of concrete. "The convoy will pass through this bottleneck. We hit them hard. We hit them fast. Priority is the children. No heroics." As she spoke, she tried not to think of her little brother, taken in the first wave of abductions. He would be 17 now, if he was still alive. She wondered if he would even remember her, or Earth. The Zelthians used neural reprogramming technology they called the Night Web to erase memories and create compliant slaves. "What about our guest?" someone asked. Lara glanced at the tall figure standing apart from the group. Cathar, a defector from the Zelthian Royal Guard. His skin was pale blue, almost translucent, with an intricate network of luminescent veins visible beneath. His eyes, completely black except for pinpricks of white light for pupils, surveyed them without emotion. "He comes with me," Lara said firmly. "His intel on their shield frequencies is our only advantage." The team moved out as darkness fell completely. In the post-invasion world, night belonged to the Resistance. Zelthian vision was superior in daylight, but struggled with Earth's particular spectrum of darkness. It was one of the few advantages humans had discovered. They positioned themselves along the planned route, hidden among twisted metal and concrete. The whirring hum of Zelthian engines grew louder. Lara signaled with hand gestures, watching the eerie blue glow of the transports approach. "On my mark," she whispered into her comm. The lead transport passed their position. Lara could see small faces pressed against the darkened windows. Children, maybe 30 of them, expressions blank and uncomprehending. The night web was already taking effect. "Now!" Explosive charges detonated, disabling the lead transport's repulsor fields. It crashed to the ground with a screech of metal. The second transport swerved, its defensive shields flaring to life with a purple haze. Cathar stepped forward, raising a device that emitted a high-pitched whine. The second transport's shields flickered and died. Lara's team opened fire with modified pulse rifles, energy bolts striking the vehicle's propulsion system. But the third transport responded with overwhelming force. Turrets emerged from its hull, spraying the area with energy bursts that vaporized concrete and flesh alike. 2 of Lara's fighters disappeared in flashes of blue light. "Fall back!" she screamed, firing her rifle one-handed while dragging a wounded comrade with the other. The night erupted in chaos. Zelthian ground troops deployed from the third transport, their armor making them look like walking shadows with points of blue light where joints connected. They moved with inhuman grace, firing weapons that seemed to bend light itself. Lara saw Quinn dash toward the crashed first transport, slipping inside while the Zelthians focused on the resistance fighters. Smart move. She was trying to reach the children. Cathar engaged 3 Zelthian soldiers in close combat, his movements a blur. Despite being outnumbered, his intimate knowledge of their fighting techniques gave him an edge. His elongated fingers, tipped with natural claws, tore through armor at weak points no human would have recognized. Lara provided covering fire, but the situation was deteriorating rapidly. More Zelthian troops were converging on their position, and the 3rd transport was maneuvering to cut off their escape route. "Quint, status," she shouted into her comm. "Children are sedated. Can't move them quickly," came the strained reply. "Need 10 minutes to counteract the basic neural suppressants." "We don't have 10 seconds," Lara ducked as an energy bolt sizzled past her head. A decision crystallized in her mind. New plan, Delta Team, maximum suppression fire. Cover our retreat. She fought her way to the transport where Quinn was working frantically on a child's neural implant. The boy's eyes were glazed, his movements sluggish. "We have to go," Lara urged, firing through the doorway at approaching Zelthians. "If I leave now, they'll be permanently damaged." Quinn replied without looking up. "The night web is still forming neural pathways. Breaking the connection improperly could cause brain death." Lara swore under her breath. "How many can you save in the next 2 minutes?" "Maybe 5. The others—" Quinn's voice trailed off. The weight of command pressed down on Lara like a physical force. 25 children against 5 of her fighters. The math was brutally simple and utterly unbearable. "Save who you can," she said finally. "Cathar!" The Xelthian defector appeared at the transport entrance, his pale skin splattered with the luminescent blue fluid that served as blood for his species. "Can you pilot this?" Lara asked, gesturing to the damaged transport. "Not far, but yes. Get Quinn and the children she can save to the eastern fallback point. The rest of us will create a diversion." Cathar's alien features revealed nothing, but he nodded once. "The children they recapture will be taken to processing Camp 47 on Titan. That's the central holding facility before transfer to the homeworld." The information struck Lara like a physical blow. Camp 47. A location. A target. For 10 years, they'd been fighting blind, striking at transports opportunistically without knowing where the children ultimately went. "Go," she ordered, already planning their next move. She rejoined the remaining fighters, organizing a fighting retreat that drew the Zelthian forces away from the damaged transport. 2 more of her team fell, their bodies disintegrating under concentrated energy fire. When they finally regrouped at the eastern fallback point, a subterranean bunker beneath the ruins of what had once been a government building, Lara took inventory of their losses. Of 8 fighters, only 3 remained besides herself. Quinn had managed to save 4 children, who now huddled together, confused and frightened as the neural suppressants wore off. "What now, Major?" asked one of the survivors, a former army sergeant whose face was half burned from a previous encounter with Zelthian weapons. Lara looked at the rescued children, then at Cathar, who stood silently watching her with those unsettling black eyes. "Now," she said, her voice hardening with resolve, "we find Camp 47. The subterranean resistance network beneath Hanoi had expanded over the years, connecting old metro tunnels, bomb shelters, and hastily dug passages into a labyrinth that the Zelthians found difficult to map or monitor. It was here, in this underground world, that the remnants of humanity planned their continued survival. Lara stood before the Earth Alliance Council, 5 leaders representing different regions of the fragmented resistance. The meeting chamber was a repurposed subway station, illuminated by salvaged Zelthian light orbs that cast an eerie blue glow over scarred faces. "Camp 47 is heavily fortified," Cathar explained, projecting a holographic image from a device on his wrist. The 3-dimensional representation showed a massive facility built into the rocky surface of Titan, Saturn's largest moon. It houses approximately 7,000 Earth children, with capacity for 10,000. A murmur rippled through the gathered resistance fighters. 7,000 children. The number was staggering, representing abductions from across the globe. The facility is protected by a triple-layered energy shield, automated defense systems, and a garrison of 200 Xelthian royal guards. Cathar continued. The children are kept in suspended animation until transport ships arrive to take them to the homeworld. Why children? Asked a council member, a woman whose face bore the traditional tattoos of Maori ancestry. After all these years, we still don't understand their objective. Cathar's expression remained impassive, but Lara had learned to detect subtle shifts in his alien features. This question troubled him. The Xelthian population is in decline. He said finally, genetic degradation from millennia of selective breeding. Your species possesses genetic diversity and adaptability that mine has lost. The High Command believes that by reshaping human children physically and mentally, they can rejuvenate our bloodlines while maintaining control. They're harvesting our genetic material? Quinn asked, horrified. No. Cathar replied. They are raising a generation of slaves who will eventually be integrated into Xelthian society through controlled breeding programs. The Night Web ensures compliance by rewriting neural pathways during developmental stages. Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. This wasn't mere conquest or resource extraction. It was a slow-motion extinction event for humanity, carried out through their children. Lara stepped forward. We now have a target. For the first time, we know where our children are being held before final transport. We need to strike. With what? Challenged a council member, a former Chinese military officer. We have no spacecraft capable of reaching Titan. Our weapons cannot penetrate Xelthian shields. This information changes nothing except to remind us of our helplessness. Quinn cleared her throat. All eyes turned to the diminutive scientist. That's not entirely true. She said, I've been working on something, a weapon derived from salvaged Xelthian technology combined with principles of quantum entanglement. I call it the Primus Flame. She activated her tablet, displaying schematics for a device that looked like a compact generator with a focusing array. In theory, it generates an energy field that disrupts the molecular cohesion of Xelthian technology. Their shields, weapons, even their neural suppression systems operate on principles of quantum alignment. The Primus Flame creates a cascading failure in those alignments. In theory? The Chinese officer asked skeptically. I've tested components successfully. Quinn replied, but constructing a full prototype requires materials we don't have. Specifically, I need access to a Xelthian command core, the central processor from one of their capital ships. Lara exchanged glances with Cathar. Could we capture one? The Xelthian defector considered this. The orbital defense platform designated Dark Moon by your people contains a secondary command core. It's still heavily guarded, but less so than a capital ship. So we have two impossible missions instead of one. The Maori councilwoman observed dryly. Attack an orbital platform to steal technology for an unproven weapon. Then somehow reach Titan to attack a heavily fortified facility. Yes, Lara said simply. That's exactly what we're going to do. The council debated for hours. Voices were raised, alternatives proposed and dismissed. Some argued for continued guerrilla tactics on Earth. Others suggested seeking negotiations, despite 10 years of Xelthian refusal to communicate meaningfully with human representatives. In the end, it came down to a simple truth: they were losing the war of attrition. Each year, more children were taken. Each year, resistance forces dwindled. Without a dramatic change in strategy, humanity faced eventual extinction, not through genocide, but through the systematic harvesting of its future. The Council authorized Lara's mission with reluctance. Resources were allocated, including their precious few remaining aircraft, modified pre-invasion military craft supplemented with salvaged Xelthian technology. This is likely a suicide mission, the Chinese officer told Lara privately after the meeting. But perhaps a necessary one. Lara nodded. I've been dying slowly for 10 years. Might as well make it count. She assembled a strike team from volunteers across the resistance network, 20 of their best fighters, plus Quinn and Cathar. They trained in the tunnels beneath Hanoi, rehearsing tactics based on Cathar's knowledge of Xelthian protocols and defense systems. Quinn worked tirelessly on preparations for the Primus Flame. explaining the concepts to Lara during rare moments of rest. The name isn't just for dramatic effect. She said, dark circles under her eyes from sleepless nights of calculation. The quantum disruption manifests visually as a spreading wave of energy that resembles fire. It's quite beautiful, yeah, actually. Will it hurt the children? Lara asked, her thoughts never far from the captives. No, it only affects Zelthian technology because of their unique quantum structure. But I'm building in safeguards anyway. 2 weeks of preparation passed quickly. The night before the mission, Lara found Cathar alone on the surface, staring at the stars visible through breaks in the perpetual orange haze. Having second thoughts? She asked, joining him. No. His voice was always slightly modulated, as if coming through a filter. But I am contemplating connections. What do you mean? Cathar turned those black eyes toward her. The commander of Camp 47 is General Kalor. He was once my blood brother. We trained together, fought together, bore ceremonial scars together. He pulled aside his collar to reveal an intricate pattern of raised tissue on his shoulder. In your terms, we were closer than family. Lara absorbed this information. Will that be a problem? No. When I defected, I severed all bonds. In Zelthian culture, I am already dead to him. But he is formidable. Perhaps the most dangerous warrior in our military hierarchy. Why did you defect? Lara had never asked before, accepting his assistance without questioning his motives. Cathar was silent for a long moment. I was assigned to a collection transport early in the invasion. A human child, a female perhaps 4 of your years, looked at me as I was applying the neural suppressor. She showed no fear, only curiosity. She asked why my eyes were so big. He paused, his alien features struggling to convey emotion in ways a human could understand. I had no answer that satisfied me. In that moment, I saw the hollowness of our mission. We claim to seek genetic renewal, but we destroy what makes your species valuable, your diversity, your independence, your capacity for unexpected perspectives. I could not be part of that destruction. Lara felt a rare connection with the alien being beside her. Tomorrow, we bring the fight to them. Yes, Cathar agreed. Tomorrow, we bring fire. The attack on the Dark Moon orbital platform began at 0300 hours, when Zelthian chronobiological rhythms were at their lowest efficiency. 2 modified stealth aircraft, their hulls coated with radiation-absorbing material developed by Quinn, approached from the planet's night side. Lara led the first team, with Cathar providing real-time guidance on Zelthian defensive positioning. Quinn accompanied the second team, ready to identify and extract the command core once they gained access. Approaching outer sensor perimeter, the pilot announced, her voice tight with tension. Passive countermeasures engaged. The Dark Moon grew larger in the viewport, a sleek, crescent-shaped construction of dark metal that seemed to devour light rather than reflect it. Occasional pulses of blue energy flickered across its surface as defense systems cycled. They haven't detected us. Cathar confirmed, monitoring Zelthian communications through a device implanted in his auditory canal. Maintain current approach vector. The 2 crafts separated, approaching from different angles. Lara's team would create a diversion, while the second team infiltrated the maintenance access points identified by Cathar. Remember, Lara told her team, we need 15 minutes of chaos. Make it count. They docked with surprising ease at an external airlock designed for repair drones. Cathar overrode the security protocols, and they were inside. 8 resistance fighters in environmental suits modified to mask their biological signatures. Split up, Lara ordered. Teams of 2, plant charges at the designated points, then fall back to extraction. They moved through the curving corridors of the station, encountering only minimal resistance initially. The Zelthian design aesthetic was minimalist to the point of disorientation. Smooth surfaces without obvious controls, doorways that appeared and disappeared as needed, lighting that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere. Cathar led Lara toward the primary power distribution node. This will create the most disruption, he explained. They were placing explosive charges when the first alarm sounded, a pulsing vibration that could be felt through the floor. rather than heard. "We've been detected," Cathar said unnecessarily. "How much time do we have?" "Less than anticipated. Security protocols are activating." They finished setting the charges and turned to retreat, only to find their path blocked by 3 Zelthian guards. The aliens moved with fluid grace, energy weapons raised. Cathar stepped forward, speaking in the clicking, modulated tones of his native language. The guards hesitated, confusion evident in their posture. Lara used that moment of uncertainty to fire her modified pulse rifle. The shot caught the lead guard in the joint where neck armor met helmet, dropping him instantly. Cathar moved with blinding speed, engaging the other 2 in close combat. "Go!" he shouted to Lara. "I will delay them!" She hesitated, torn between mission objectives and not abandoning a team member. "The explosives must be detonated in sequence," Cathar insisted. "Go!" Lara ran, hearing the sounds of combat fade behind her. She triggered her comm unit. "All teams, status report." Fragmented responses came back. 2 teams had successfully planted their charges. One was under heavy fire, and the second craft's team reported they were proceeding toward the command core section. 30 seconds to synchronize detonation, Lara announced, taking cover in an alcove as a patrol of Zelthian guards rushed past. The explosions began as planned, sequential detonations that rippled through the station's power grid. Emergency lighting activated, bathing the corridors in pulsing red. Gravity fluctuated momentarily, then stabilized at what felt like 80% of normal. "Team 2, what's your status?" Lara demanded. "We've reached the secondary command center," came Quinn's breathless reply. "Facing heavy resistance. Need backup." "On my way!" Lara checked her weapon charge and moved out, navigating by memory through the disorienting corridors. She found Team 2 pinned down outside a sealed doorway. Zelthian defenders had established a defensive position using portable shield generators, making a frontal assault suicide. "We need to get through that door," Quinn explained, her face streaked with sweat. "The command core is just beyond." Lara assessed the situation quickly. "Cover me." Before anyone could object, she sprinted toward a maintenance shaft Cathar had identified in their briefing. Weapon fire tracked her movement, energy bolts sizzling past close enough to raise blisters on exposed skin. She reached the shaft and wrenched open the access panel, diving inside as return fire from her team provided momentary cover. The narrow passage was barely large enough for a human adult. She crawled rapidly, counting junctions until she reached the one that should connect to the command center. Kicking out the panel, she emerged behind the Zelthian defensive position. 3 guards turned in surprise, their weapons still trained on the doorway where the rest of Team 2 was pinned down. Lara fired rapidly, the element of surprise allowing her to drop 2 guards before they could react. The third managed to activate a personal shield, her shots dissipating harmlessly against the purple energy field. The Zelthian counterattacked, moving with the unnatural speed characteristic of their species. Lara barely dodged a strike that would have crushed her windpipe, rolling away and coming up firing. Her shots continued to be absorbed by the shield. The Zelthian pressed its advantage, backing her toward a wall. In desperation, Lara dropped her rifle and drew a combat knife, a pre-invasion military blade that Cathar had modified with vibrating edge technology salvaged from Zelthian cutting tools. The guard hesitated, perhaps confused by the primitive weapon. Lara used that moment to lunge forward. The vibrating blade passed through the energy shield as if it weren't there, a property Cathar had discovered through painful trial and error. It sank into the Zelthian's chest, piercing one of their 3 heart chambers. Luminescent blue fluid sprayed from the wound. The Zelthian made a high-pitched keening sound and collapsed. Lara rushed to the door controls, overriding the lockdown with the access codes Cathar had provided. The door slid open, allowing Team 2 to surge forward. "Quinn, we have limited time," Lara urged. The scientist moved to the central console, her fingers flying over the alien interface that had been modified to accommodate human users during the early occupation. "The command core is physically integrated into the station architecture. We can't remove it completely." "Then what options do we have?" Quinn bit her lip, thinking rapidly. "I could download the core programming and quantum signature, combined with the materials we already have. It might be enough." "Might be?" It's our only option. Lara nodded grimly. Do it. Everyone else. Defensive positions. We hold until the download is complete. Zelthian reinforcements arrived quickly, but the narrow entrance to the command center created a bottleneck that the resistance fighters exploited effectively. Still, their ammunition was limited, and Zelthian numbers seemed endless. How much longer? Lara shouted over the sounds of battle. 3 minutes, Quinn replied, not looking up from her work. A grenade-like device landed among the defenders, releasing a cloud of paralytic gas. 2 fighters went down immediately, their muscles locked in rigid spasm. Fall back to the inner chamber, Lara ordered, helping drag the incapacitated fighters to safety as the remaining team members provided covering fire. They sealed the inner doors, but Lara knew it was a temporary measure at best. Zelthian cutting technology would make short work of the barriers. 2 minutes, Quinn updated tensely. Lara's comm unit crackled. Major, extraction craft reports multiple Zelthian interceptors approaching. We need to leave now. Understood. Prepare for emergency extraction. She turned to Quinn. We're out of time. Just 1 more minute, the scientist pleaded. The inner doors began to glow red as Zelthian cutting tools attacked the metal. Lara made a decision. Team 2, get Quinn to extraction. I'll hold them here. But Quinn began to protest. That's an order. Earth needs that data more than it needs me. Before further objections could be raised, the doors gave way. Zelthian guards poured into the chamber. Lara fired continuously, creating a wall of suppressing fire, while Team 2 retreated through a secondary exit with Quinn. She was nearly out of ammunition when a familiar figure stepped through the ruined doorway. Cathar, his pale blue skin now streaked with wounds, but very much alive. This way, he urged, indicating a maintenance passage different from the one Team 2 had used. I've secured an alternative route. They fled through the cramped passageways, pursued by Zelthian guards whose larger frames made the tight spaces more challenging to navigate. They emerged near a secondary docking port where a small Zelthian shuttle was docked. You commandeered a shuttle? Lara asked incredulously. I anticipated complications, Cathar replied, ushering her aboard. The shuttle's controls were fully Zelthian, but Cathar operated them with practiced ease. They detached from the station just as alarms indicated the docking clamps were engaging to prevent departure. Will this craft reach Earth? Lara asked as they accelerated away from the dark moon. Yes, but we won't be going to Earth immediately. Cathar replied, The extraction vessels are under attack. They will assume we were lost. It's better this way. We can approach separately, using Zelthian identification codes. Lara watched through the viewport as energy weapons fire lit up the darkness of space. The resistance extraction craft were faster but outgunned. She saw one take a direct hit, its hull breaching in a silent explosion of air and debris. Those are our people, she said quietly. And they are completing their mission, Cathar replied, as must we. The shuttle accelerated, leaving the battle behind. Lara felt the weight of more lives lost, more sacrifices made in a war that seemed endless and unwinnable. Did Quinn escape with the data? She asked finally. Cathar checked a display. Yes, one extraction craft is on a successful trajectory to Earth. The Zelthian pursuit vessels are breaking off. Lara allowed herself a moment of relief. Phase 1 of their impossible mission was complete. They had what they needed to create the Primus Flame. Now they just had to reach Titan and rescue 7,000 children from the most heavily fortified Zelthian facility in the solar system. The return to Earth was tense but uneventful. Cathar guided the Zelthian shuttle to a remote landing site in what had once been the Vietnamese highlands, now transformed into a bizarre landscape of mutated vegetation and strange, bioluminescent fungi that had adapted to the altered atmosphere. They abandoned the shuttle after Cathar disabled its tracking systems and made their way on foot to the nearest resistance outpost. From there, a series of covert transports brought them back to the Hanoi underground. The reception was mixed, joy at their survival tempered by grief for those lost in the operation. Of the 20 resistance fighters who had embarked on the mission, only 11 returned. Quinn was already deep into her work when Lara found her in a makeshift laboratory constructed in what had once been a bank vault. Equipment salvaged from abandoned universities and research facilities crowded the space, along with components of Zelthian technology in various states of disassembly. "Did you get what you needed?" Lara asked. Quinn looked up, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept since returning. "Yes, the command core data is remarkable. Their quantum programming architecture it's like nothing I've ever seen, beautiful in its way." "Can you build the Primus flame?" A rare smile crossed Quinn's face. "I already have." She gestured to a device on a central workbench. It was smaller than Lara had expected, about the size of an old-fashioned microwave oven, with a focusing array that resembled an antenna. "That's it! That's the weapon that will penetrate Zelthian shields?" "Don't let its size fool you," Quinn cautioned. "The quantum cascade effect expands exponentially. In theory, a full-power activation could disrupt Zelthian technology across an entire continent." "In theory," Lara repeated. "Have you tested it?" "On a small scale, yes." Quinn activated a screen showing footage of a Zelthian communication device. She triggered the Primus flame at minimum power. A wave of what looked like orange-red energy, not unlike actual fire, spread from the device and engulfed the Zelthian technology, which promptly disintegrated into component molecules. "Impressive," Lara admitted. "But Camp 47 has triple-layered shields and automated defense systems. Will this work on that scale?" "That's where things get complicated," Quinn admitted. "The Primus flame requires an enormous amount of power for large-scale effects. We don't have a portable power source capable of generating that level of output. So we're back to square one." "Not exactly. We could use the Zelthians' own power systems against them. Camp 47 has fusion reactors. If we can access them and create a feedback loop through the Primus flame, we'd need to breach the facility first," Lara pointed out. "Which is what we need the flame to accomplish." "A small-scale version could create a localized breach," Quinn suggested. "Enough for an infiltration team to enter and access the primary reactor controls." Before they could discuss further, a commotion outside drew their attention. Raised voices, the sound of running feet. Lara's hand went instinctively to her weapon. A resistance fighter appeared at the laboratory entrance. "Major, the Council needs you immediately. There's been a development." In the central chamber, the Earth Alliance Council was gathered around a communication terminal. A large screen displayed a face that made Lara's blood run cold. A Zelthian officer, his pale blue features arranged in what passed for a smile in their species. "Repeat our offer." The Zelthian was saying, "The Earth Alliance will cease all resistance activities. In exchange, we will reduce child collection quotas by 50% and consult with human representatives on selection criteria." "This is unprecedented," the Maori councilwoman said as Lara entered. "They've never negotiated before." The Chinese officer looked troubled. "They must have detected our orbital strike. They know we're planning something bigger." Lara studied the Zelthian on the screen. "Who is that?" "General Kalor," Cathar replied quietly from where he stood in the shadows. "Commander of Camp 47 and High Marshal of Zelthian Expansion Forces." The name sent a shiver through Lara. This was the alien responsible for the systematic abduction of Earth's children, the one who ran the facility where 7,000 young humans were being prepared for neural reprogramming and transport to a distant world. "We should hear them out," suggested one council member. "If they're willing to reduce abductions—" "No," Lara interrupted. "This is fear. They've realized we have the capability to hurt them now. The orbital platform strike was successful. The Primus flame is operational." "At small scale," Quinn corrected quietly. "They don't know that." Lara countered. "For the first time in 10 years, we have leverage. We should use it." The council debated intensely. Some argued for negotiation, seeing it as an opportunity to reduce immediate suffering. Others, led by Lara, pushed for pressing their advantage with an immediate attack on Camp 47. "Even if we reduce abductions by half, we're still losing our future," Lara argued. "And there's no guarantee they'll honor any agreement? We have a weapon and a target. We need to strike now." In the end, the vote was narrowly in favor of Lara's position. The Earth Alliance would reject negotiations and proceed with the attack on Camp 47. "I hope we're not making a terrible mistake," the Maori councilwoman said privately to Lara after the decision. "The mistake was waiting 10 years to take the fight to them," Lara replied. Preparations accelerated. The Primus Flame was modified for transport and connected to portable power cells that would allow for limited operation before requiring connection to Zelthian power sources. Quinn worked tirelessly, making adjustments and running simulations. Kaathar provided detailed layouts of Camp 47, identifying vulnerabilities and suggesting infiltration routes. His knowledge was invaluable, but Lara sensed a growing tension in the Zelthian defector as the operation took shape. "You're troubled," she observed one evening, finding him alone in the planning room, studying holographic projections of the Titan facility. "Yes," he admitted, "I am conflicted." "About facing your former blood brother?" Kathar's alien features shifted in what Lara had come to recognize as their equivalent of a frown. "Partly, but also about the children." "What about them?" "The Nightweb neural programming is progressive. Many of the children taken in the early years of the invasion will have completed the full integration process. Their minds will have been reshaped." "Meaning what, exactly?" Cathar seemed to choose his words carefully. "They may not wish to be rescued. They may resist. They may even fight to protect their Zelthian masters." The implication hit Lara like a physical blow. "Are you saying we might have to fight the very children we're trying to save?" "It is a possibility we must consider." Lara thought of her brother, taken a decade ago. Would he even recognize her now? Would he see her as an enemy? "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," she said finally. "The mission proceeds as planned." The attack force assembled, 3 shuttles, each modified with Zelthian technology to disguise their signatures as maintenance vessels. 30 fighters, the best the Resistance could spare, along with Quinn, Cathar, and the Primus Flame. Their departure was scheduled for 0200 hours, when Zelthian orbital surveillance was at its minimal coverage. The journey to Titan would take 5 days using the modified propulsion systems. As the teams made final preparations, Lara addressed them briefly. 10 years ago they came to our world and took our future. They believed we would accept defeat, that we would gradually fade away as a species. Today we prove them wrong. Today we bring the fight to their doorstep." She looked at the faces before her, scarred, determined, afraid, but resolute. "Some of us won't return, but those who fall will do so knowing they fought for humanity's future. For our children." A murmur of agreement ran through the assembled fighters. Lara caught Quinn's eye. The scientist nodded once, confidence radiating from her small frame. "We launch in 30 minutes. Lara concluded. "Check your equipment. Say your goodbyes. Make peace with whatever gods you believe in. When we reach Titan, we bring fire." The journey to Titan was tense and uncomfortable. The modified shuttles were not designed for extended human habitation, and the cramped quarters tested everyone's patience. Lara spent much of the time reviewing the attack plan, identifying contingencies, and preparing for various scenarios. Quinn monitored the Primus Flame constantly, making minute adjustments to ensure its stability during the journey. Quantum fields are sensitive to gravitational fluctuations, she explained when Lara questioned her vigilance. "If the calibration drifts too far, we could lose the cascade effect entirely." Cathar grew increasingly withdrawn as they approached Saturn's system. His normally impassive features seemed strained, his movements less fluid. Lara found him staring at the viewport as the ringed planet grew larger in their view. "Second thoughts?" she asked. "No," he replied, "but memories are persistent." "Tell me about Kalor," she suggested. "Know your enemy, right?" Cathar's black eyes reflected the distant glow of Saturn. "Kalor is brilliant, adaptable, and utterly devoted to Zelthian supremacy. Unlike many of our military leaders, he studies his adversaries closely. He respects human resilience while still viewing your species as ultimately inferior." "And personally?" "We were cast from the same genetic template, part of an elite military lineage. In your terms, we would be considered twins, though the concept is not precise in our biology. We shared everything, Training, combat, advancement through the ranks. Cathar touched the ceremonial scar on his shoulder absently. When I defected, he would have felt it as a personal betrayal beyond the political implications. In our culture, such betrayal can only be cleansed through death. "He'll try to kill you," Lara said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, and I will try to kill him. There is no other possible outcome of our meeting." The conversation was interrupted by the proximity alert. Titan loomed ahead, a massive moon shrouded in its thick, orange atmosphere. Unlike Earth's atmosphere, which had been altered by Zelthian terraforming technologies to accommodate their biological preferences, Titan's natural methane-rich environment was already hospitable to Zelthian physiology. "Passive scans show increased activity around Camp 47, reported the shuttle pilot. "They may be expecting us." "Maintain approach vector," Lara ordered. "Activate countermeasures." The shuttles engaged their disguise protocols, electronic systems broadcasting Zelthian maintenance vessel identification codes that Cathar had provided. They entered Titan's atmosphere, the craft shuddering as they encountered turbulence. Through breaks in the cloud cover, Lara could see the surface, a bleak landscape of methane lakes and rocky outcroppings, and there, rising from the frozen terrain like a massive insect nest, was Camp 47. The facility was larger than she had imagined, a sprawling complex of interconnected structures surrounded by 3 visible energy shields that shimmered with purple-blue light. Landing pads and docking bays dotted the perimeter, with Zelthian patrol craft moving in regular patterns. "Incoming transmission," announced the communication officer. "They're requesting authentication codes." Cathar moved to the console, inputting a sequence from memory. "Maintenance authorization, Priority 7, Reactor Efficiency Inspection." There was a tense moment of silence. Then, "Authorization confirmed. Proceed to Docking Bay 12 for containment protocols." Collective relief swept through the shuttle. Phase 1 of infiltration was complete. They had been granted access to the facility. The 3 shuttles landed in the designated bay, which was designed for decontamination of vessels returning from maintenance operations. It was a stroke of luck. The bay would be isolated from the main facility during the decontamination process, giving them a window of opportunity to deploy. "Remember the plan," Lara told the assembled teams as they prepared to disembark. "Team Alpha secures the control center and disables internal sensors. Team Beta escorts Quinn to the primary reactor to connect the Primus flame. Team Gamma locates and prepares the children for evacuation." She checked her weapons one final time. A modified pulse rifle and the vibrating-edge combat knife that had saved her life on the orbital platform. "At comm discipline at all times. If you're compromised, follow the diversion protocol. Questions?" There were none. These fighters had trained together for weeks, each knowing their role in the complex operation. The shuttle doors opened, and they moved out with practiced efficiency. Zelthian workers in the decontamination bay were taken by surprise, stunned or neutralized before they could raise alarms. Cathar accessed a terminal, bringing up a facility map. "Security patrols have been increased," he noted. "Kalor is suspicious." "Then we move faster," Lara decided. "Alpha Team, go." The first team disappeared into the access corridors, moving toward the facility's control center. After a calculated delay, Team Beta followed with Quinn and the Primus flame, heading for the reactor level. Lara led Team Gamma, with Cathar at her side. Their objective was the central holding area where the children were kept in suspended animation. They encountered minimal resistance initially, using service corridors and maintenance shafts to avoid regular patrol routes. Cathar's knowledge of Zelthian protocols allowed them to bypass security checkpoints by triggering false alarms in distant sections of the facility, drawing guards away from their path. "Something's wrong," Cathar said suddenly, stopping at an intersection. "This is too easy." Lara had been thinking the same thing. "You think it's a trap?" "I think Kalor knows we're here and is directing our movement." Before she could respond, her comm unit activated. "Alpha Team reporting, control center secured, but internal sensors are on a separate system. We can't disable them remotely." "Understood. Proceed with secondary objectives." Lara turned to Cathar. "If he knows we're here, why let us get this far?" "To see what we're planning," Cathar replied grimly. To evaluate our capabilities before responding with full force. Or to draw out you specifically, Lara suggested. Cathar didn't disagree. We should proceed with caution. They continued toward the central holding area, moving more cautiously now. The corridors became wider, the Zelthian aesthetic more pronounced, curved walls with embedded bioluminescent patterns, floors that seemed to absorb sound, air that carried a strange, sweet scent that Cathar identified as a calming agent used to keep the children docile when awakened for processing. They reached a massive doorway that pulsed with energy, according to Cathar's intelligence. Beyond this point lay thousands of suspension pods, each containing a human child in stasis. The entry requires high-level authorization. Cathar said, examining the control panel, I can override it, but it will trigger alerts. Do it, Lara ordered. We're past the point of stealth now, so... Cathar placed his hand on the panel, which scanned his biological signature. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the energy field across the doorway flickered and died. They've already changed the protocols, Cathar realized. This is definitely... The door slid open, revealing not the expected rows of suspension pods, but a large, empty chamber. At its center stood a single Zelthian figure, taller than Cathar, wearing the ornate armor of a high marshal. His pale blue skin was marked with ceremonial scars, including one that matched the pattern on Cathar's shoulder. Welcome home, brother, said General Kalor, his voice a modulated harmony that translated seamlessly to human ears. I've been expecting you. Cathar stepped forward, positioning himself between Kalor and the human fighters. Where are the children? Kalor. Safe, protected, being prepared for a better existence than this primitive resistance could ever offer them. Kalor's black eyes swept over the humans with undisguised contempt. Did you tell your new allies what happens to the children who reject the Nightweb? How their minds fragment, how they become lost between worlds? That is a risk we must take. Cathar replied, freedom, even with suffering, is preferable to comfortable slavery. A very human sentiment. You've been contaminated by their emotional reasoning. Kalor made a gesture, and wall panels slid open to reveal Zelthian royal guards, their weapons trained on the resistance fighters. I allowed your infiltration because I wanted to see you once more before execution, to understand how one of our finest could fall so far. Lara activated her comm unit, sending the prearranged signal that would alert the other teams to enact their contingency plans. She needed to buy time. Where are the children really being held? She demanded. Kalor's attention shifted to her. Ah, the human commander. Major Lara Min, formerly of the Vietnamese Special Forces, now a resistance leader. We have extensive files on you. You didn't answer my question. The children are no longer your concern. Soon, they will no longer even remember Earth exists. That's where you're wrong, Lara said, her finger tensing on her weapon's trigger. Earth remembers them, and we've come to take them home. Kalor made a sound that might have been laughter. With what? Your primitive weapons? Your salvaged technology? You've been permitted to survive these 10 years because full eradication was deemed inefficient. That calculation has changed. A distant rumble shook the chamber. Dust drifted from the ceiling. What was that? Kalor demanded. Lara allowed herself a small smile. That would be Plan B. Team Beta had reached the reactor level. Quinn would be connecting the Primus Flame to the facility's power core, preparing to create the quantum cascade that would disrupt all Zelthian technology within the complex. Kalor seemed to realize what was happening. Guards, secure the reactor level immediately, he ordered. In that moment of distraction, Cathar moved with blinding speed, launching himself at his former blood brother. The two Zelthians collided in a blur of motion too fast for human eyes to fully track. Now! Lara shouted, and Team Gamma opened fire on the Royal Guards. The chamber erupted in chaos. Energy weapons discharged, filling the air with the scent of ozone and burning materials. Lara directed her team to fall back toward the corridor, establishing a defensive position, while Cathar engaged Kalor in what appeared to be a ritualized combat, their movements following patterns that suggested formal training. Team Alpha, status? Lara demanded into her comm. "We've located the actual holding chamber," came the reply. "2 levels down, east quadrant. Defenses are heavy. We're pinned down." Team Beta. "Primus Flame is connected to auxiliary power. Main reactor access is blocked. Dr. Quinn says we need 5 minutes to initiate the cascade." Lara made a quick decision. "Team Gamma will reinforce Alpha. We need to reach those children." She glanced at Cathar, locked in combat with Kalor. The two Zelthians were evenly matched, their movements a deadly dance of strikes and counterstrikes. She couldn't help him. This was his battle. "Fall back to Junction 7. She ordered her team. "We'll take the emergency shafts to the lower level." They retreated under heavy fire, 2 fighters falling to Zelthian energy weapons. Lara felt the familiar weight of command, of lives lost under her orders. But there was no time for grief or doubt. 7,000 children waited below. They reached the junction and located the emergency access shaft, a tube designed for rapid evacuation in case of containment breaches. Using rappelling equipment, they descended 2 levels, emerging in a corridor marked with Zelthian symbols that Cathar had translated as processing sector. "Alpha Team, we're on your level," Lara reported. "Guide us to your position." Following Alpha's directions, they navigated through increasingly secure areas. Signs of battle were evident, scorch marks from energy weapons, the occasional body of a Zelthian guard. Alpha Team had fought hard to reach this point. They found the remnants of Alpha holding a position at a junction, exchanging fire with Zelthian defenders who protected a massive doorway. "That's the real holding chamber," Alpha's leader reported. "We've confirmed life signs consistent with human children in suspended animation." "How many guards?" "At least 20 that we can see, probably more inside. They're using portable shield generators that our weapons can't penetrate." Lara considered their options. "We need a different approach. Did you place the charges as planned?" "Yes. All auxiliary systems are rigged to blow on your command." "Good." Lara activated her comm. "Team Beta, what's your status with the Primus Flame?" "Ready to activate," came Quinn's voice. "But we only have connection to auxiliary power. The cascade effect will be limited without main reactor integration." "Will it be enough to disrupt shields in this sector?" A pause. "Possibly. For a short duration, but I can't guarantee." "We're out of options. Quinn, do it." Another pause. Then, initiating Primus Flame in 3, 2, 1. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Lara felt a strange vibration, a ripple in the air that made her skin tingle. The lighting flickered, dimmed, then returned to normal. "Is that it?" someone muttered in disappointment. Then the Zelthian shields protecting the holding chamber entrance flared bright purple before dissolving into particles that drifted away like smoke. The guards looked at their suddenly malfunctioning equipment in confusion. "Now!" Lara shouted. "Full assault!" The combined Alpha and Gamma teams surged forward, catching the Zelthian defenders in a moment of vulnerability. Energy weapons and physical projectiles found their marks. Within minutes, the entrance was secured. "Team Beta, status of the Primus Flame?" Lara asked urgently. "Fluctuating," Quinn replied, her voice tense. "The auxiliary power isn't stable enough to maintain the cascade. We need access to the main reactor or we'll lose the effect within minutes." "Understood. We're entering the holding chamber now." The massive doors slid open, revealing a sight that stole Lara's breath. The chamber was enormous, stretching beyond sight, filled with row upon row of transparent pods. Each contained a human child, suspended in a pale blue fluid, eyes closed, seemingly peaceful. "There must be thousands," whispered one of the fighters. 7,243, corrected another, reading from a scanning device. "All alive, all in stasis." Lara moved to the nearest pod, wiping condensation from its surface. Inside was a girl who appeared to be about 6 years old, her dark hair floating around her face like a halo. She looked as if she were merely sleeping. "How do we release them?" Lara asked. Alpha's technical specialist was already examining the control systems. "The pods are linked to a central control node. We can initiate a mass revival sequence, but..." "But what?" "But they'll be disoriented, possibly traumatized. And according to these readings, many of them have already undergone partial neural reprogramming. Cawthor's warning echoed in Lara's mind. Some might resist rescue. Some might even fight against their liberators. We don't have a choice. She decided, begin the revival sequence. Teams, prepare for evacuation. We'll need to move them quickly once they're conscious. The technician activated the sequence. Throughout the vast chamber, the pods began to glow with increased intensity. The fluid inside began to drain slowly. Lara's comm crackled. "Major, we have a problem," came Quinn's voice. "The Primus flame is becoming unstable. The auxiliary power source is causing feedback we didn't anticipate. Can you shut it down?" "Not without risking an uncontrolled quantum cascade. I need to reach the main reactor to safely channel the energy." "Team Beta, escort Quinn to the main reactor immediately," Lara ordered. "We've tried. The corridors are blocked by Zelthian reinforcements. We're pinned down." The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Without stable operation of the Primus flame, Zelthian shields and weapons would reactivate. The children were beginning to awaken, but evacuating thousands of disoriented, possibly resistant captives would take time they didn't have. Lara made another difficult decision. "Team Beta, hold position. I'm sending Cathar to help you reach the reactor." "Cathar is still engaged with Kalor." Someone pointed out, "Then I'll go myself." Lara decided Alpha and Gamma will continue the evacuation, get as many children to the shuttles as possible. She selected a small team of 4 fighters to accompany her. As they prepared to leave the holding chamber, the first of the stasis pods opened completely. The little girl Lara had observed earlier sat up, blinking in confusion. Her eyes, when they focused, were unnaturally bright, almost luminescent. "Hello," Lara said gently, approaching slowly. "We're here to help you." The girl tilted her head, studying Lara with those strange eyes. "Help?" she repeated, her voice raspy from disuse. "Yes, we're taking you home. To Earth." "Earth." The girl echoed. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "I remember Earth, green, blue, warm." Hope surged through Lara. Perhaps the neural reprogramming wasn't as complete as they had feared. "What's your name?" "Emily," the girl replied. "I'm Emily." All around the chamber, more pods were opening. Children of various ages were emerging, some confused, some frightened, but none showing immediate hostility. "Team Alpha, continue the evacuation," Lara ordered with renewed determination. "I'm going to help secure the reactor." She led her small team out of the holding chamber and into the corridors beyond. The facility's layout was disorienting, made more so by the fluctuating effects of the Primus flame. In some sections, Zelthian technology functioned normally. In others, it failed completely. They encountered scattered resistance, Zelthian guards who seemed as confused by the situation as they were. The fighting was intense but brief. Lara's team was driven by a sense of urgency that made them reckless but effective. They located Team Beta and Quinn in a corridor near the reactor level, exchanging fire with a substantial Zelthian force that blocked access to the main power core. "The flame is reaching critical instability," Quinn reported when Lara reached her. "If we don't stabilize it soon, it could either fail completely or trigger an uncontrolled cascade that might destroy the entire facility." "Options?" Quinn pointed to a maintenance shaft. "That leads directly to the reactor control room, but it's too small for most of us to navigate. And it's probably monitored." Lara examined the shaft. It was narrow, designed for Zelthian maintenance drones rather than humanoid access. "I can fit," she decided. "Guide me through the reactor integration process." "It's not that simple," Quinn protested. "The calibrations require specialized knowledge of both Zelthian technology and quantum field theory." "Then you're coming with me," Lara said flatly. Quinn looked at the tiny shaft with obvious apprehension but nodded. "Let's go." They squeezed into the cramped passage, crawling on elbows and knees through a space barely large enough for an adult human. Quinn, with her smaller frame, managed more easily than Lara. They emerged into a dimly lit control room dominated by a central column of pulsing blue energy, the main reactor core. No Zelthian guards were present. They had apparently assumed the maintenance shaft was too small for human infiltration. "There." Quinn pointed to a control interface. I need to access that terminal to establish a connection between the Primus flame and the main reactor. Lara stood guard while Quinn worked, her fingers flying over the alien controls with practiced ease. Minutes stretched by, punctuated by distant sounds of battle. How much longer? Lara asked tensely. Almost. Quinn's voice trailed off as she concentrated. There, connection established. The Primus flame is drawing power from the main reactor now. Is it stable? Yes, but Quinn's eyes widened as she read the displays. Oh no. What? The power levels are much higher than I calculated. The cascade effect is expanding beyond my projections. It's going to disable all the Zelthian technology within the facility, including life support systems and stasis pod controls. Isn't that what we wanted? Yes, but not this quickly. The children still in stasis could die if their pods shut down without proper revival sequences. And the reactor itself, if its containment fields fail while it's still active, it would explode, Lara finished grimly. Worse, it would create a quantum singularity that could tear apart a significant portion of Titan's surface. Lara activated her comm unit. All teams, accelerate evacuation immediately. We have a potential reactor breach situation. Get the children to the shuttles now. Acknowledgements came back from the teams in the holding chamber. They were moving as quickly as possible, but evacuating thousands of children through a hostile facility was a monumental task. Can you shut down the reactor safely? Lara asked Quinn. I think so, but it will take time, and once I do, the Primus flame will lose power. Zelthian systems will reactivate. How long until critical failure? Quinn checked the readings. 20 minutes, maybe less. Lara made her decision. Start the shutdown sequence. I'll inform the teams to accelerate evacuation and prepare for Zelthian resistance to reactivate. As Quinn worked on the reactor controls, Lara received updates from the evacuation teams. They had managed to move several hundred children to the shuttles, but thousands remained. And disturbing reports were coming in. Some of the older children, those who had been captives for years, were becoming increasingly agitated as the effects of the night web programming wore off. Their minds are caught between competing neural patterns. Quinn explained when Lara relayed this information. It's like waking from a dream but being unable to distinguish what's real. Will they recover? Eventually, with proper care. But right now they're confused and frightened. Lara's comm unit crackled again. Major, this is Team Alpha. We have a situation in the main corridor. Cathar and General Kalor have taken their fight to our evacuation route. We can't proceed with the children. Can you find an alternate route? Negative. All other paths are either blocked by security protocols or too dangerous for the children. Lara swore under her breath. Quinn, can you continue the reactor shutdown alone? The scientist nodded. Yes, but what are you going to do? Deal with Kalor. Lara checked her weapons. Keep working. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, leave without me. Before Quinn could protest, Lara was gone, retracing their path through the maintenance shaft and back to the corridors beyond. She fought her way through scattered Zelthian resistance, her single-minded focus on reaching the evacuation route. She found Cathar and Kalor locked in mortal combat in a wide corridor that served as the main path to the docking bays. Their fight had escalated beyond physical blows. Both wielded energy weapons that crackled with power. Around them, resistance fighters protected groups of children, unable to advance past the dueling Zelthians. Cathar was clearly weakening. His movements, though still faster than any human could manage, had slowed. Blue blood seeped from multiple wounds on his pale body. Kaler, in contrast, seemed energized by the combat. His attacks grew more ferocious with each exchange. You fight for nothing, brother, he taunted. These humans will never accept you as one of them. You are and will always be Zelthian. I fight for choice. Cathar replied, parrying a vicious strike. Something our people have forgotten in their quest for genetic purity. Lara assessed the situation quickly. The children needed to pass through this corridor to reach the shuttles. But the violent confrontation blocked their path. And time was running out before the reactor reached critical instability. She approached the edge of the combat zone, catching Cathar's eye briefly. An unspoken communication passed between them. Cathar gave an almost imperceptible nod, then redoubled his attack on Kalor, driving him toward a side passage. "Now!" Lara shouted to the evacuation teams. "Move the children through!" The resistance fighters began ushering the children past, keeping them close to the wall furthest from the fighting. Lara provided covering fire, preventing any Zelthian guards from interfering with the evacuation. Cathar and Kalor's combat spilled into the side passage. The sounds of their battle, energy discharges, and the crash of bodies against metal echoed back into the main corridor. "Keep moving," Lara urged as group after group of children passed. Some of the older ones helped carry younger children who were still weak from stasis. Others stared around with those unnaturally bright eyes, expressions torn between confusion and dawning comprehension. Lara's comm unit activated. "Major, reactor shutdown is at 70%. Quinn reported, "But I'm detecting increased instability. The Primus Flames effect is becoming erratic." "Estimated time to completion?" 10 minutes for full shutdown, but the Primus Flame effect will begin to fail within 5. "Understood. Evacuation is proceeding. We need to—" A massive explosion rocked the facility, cutting off Lara's response. The lights flickered, then stabilized at a lower intensity. "What was that?" Lara demanded. "Containment field fluctuation." Quinn replied, her voice tight with stress. "I've stabilized it, but we just lost 2 minutes off our timeline." The evacuation continued with increased urgency. Lara directed teams, covered vulnerable points, and kept a wary eye on the passage where Cathar and Kalor had disappeared. The sounds of their battle had ceased, which concerned her. Her fears were justified when Kalor emerged alone, his armor damaged, but his stance victorious. In one hand, he held a Zelthian energy weapon. In the other, something that made Lara's heart sink. Cathar's ceremonial insignia, torn from his body. "Your defector is dead," Kalor announced, his modulated voice carrying easily over the sounds of the evacuation. "As you will all soon be." Lara stepped forward, placing herself between Kalor and the stream of children being evacuated. "Your facility is about to experience a reactor breach. Your systems are failing. You've lost Kalor." The Zelthian general's features arranged themselves in what might have been a smile. "Have I? My ship is already prepared for departure. I will simply report that this facility was compromised and had to be destroyed. A regrettable loss of resource, but hardly a strategic defeat." "And the children?" "Replaceable. We will simply collect more." Rage filled Lara, hot, clarifying rage that banished fear and hesitation. "No, you won't." She raised her rifle and fired in a single, fluid motion. Kalor activated a personal shield that absorbed the energy bolt, then returned fire. Lara dove for cover, rolling behind a structural column as the spot where she had stood vaporized. "Major, we need you at the shuttles," came an urgent voice over her comm. "The older children are becoming unstable. Some are trying to return to the facility." "On my way." Lara replied, even as she fired another series of shots at Kalor. The Zelthian general advanced methodically, his shield absorbing everything she threw at him. Her rifle's charge indicator blinked warning, only a few shots remaining. She needed a different approach. "Quinn," she called into her comm, "can you create a power surge in this sector? Something to overload shield generators?" "I can try," came the reply, "but it might accelerate reactor instability." "Do it." Seconds later, the lights in the corridor surged to blinding intensity. Electronic systems sparked and smoked. Keller's shield flickered and died. Lara didn't hesitate. She charged forward, firing her remaining shots to force Kalor to dodge. As she closed the distance, she dropped the now useless rifle and drew her vibrating edge combat knife. Kalor seemed almost amused by her approach. Primitive weapons for a primitive species, he said, preparing to meet her attack. But Lara had fought alongside Cathar long enough to learn Zelthian combat techniques. She feinted left, then dropped and slid beneath Kalor's guard, driving the knife up and into a vulnerable spot Cathar had once identified. The junction where chest armor met abdominal protection. The vibrating blade pierced Zelthian armor and flesh. Blue blood spilled over Lara's hand as she twisted the knife, ensuring maximum damage. Kaylor made a sound unlike anything Lara had heard before, a high-pitched keening that seemed to contain surprise as much as pain. He staggered backward, staring at the human weapon protruding from his body. "Impossible," he gasped. "No," Lara replied, rising to her feet. "Inevitable. You took our children. Did you think we wouldn't burn the galaxy to get them back?" Kaylor fell to his knees, blue blood pooling beneath him, his black eyes fixed on Lara with an expression she couldn't interpret. "You cannot understand the pattern," he said, his modulated voice failing. "The children were to be our salvation." "They're our salvation," Lara corrected. "Our future, not yours." She left him there, kneeling in his own blood, and ran to catch up with the evacuation. The corridor led to the docking bays where the 3 shuttles were being loaded with children. Resistance fighters were working frantically, organizing the confused and frightened captives into groups. "Status," Lara demanded. "First shuttle is loaded and ready for departure," reported a team leader. "Second is at 80% capacity. Third is still loading." "And the children?" "Most of the younger ones are compliant, scared but cooperative. Some of the older ones are experiencing programming conflicts. We've had to restrain a few who tried to return to their pods." Lara looked at the gathered children, faces of every ethnicity, ages ranging from perhaps 4 to 17. Some stared blankly, still partially under the influence of the night web. Others were crying or clinging to one another. A few of the oldest ones were physically restrained, their expressions alternating between confusion and anger. One boy caught her attention, perhaps 16 or 17, with features that reminded her painfully of her own family. Could it be Min? She said hesitantly. "Tran Min." The boy turned at the name, his unnaturally bright eyes focusing on her face. For a moment there was no recognition. Then something flickered in his expression. "Ra," he said uncertainly. "Sister?" Joy and grief warred in Lara's heart. Her brother remembered her, if only vaguely. But his eyes, his movements, his very speech patterns had been altered by years of Zelthian conditioning. "Yes," she said, fighting back tears. "It's me. I've come to take you home." Tran stared at her, conflict evident in his face. "Home," he repeated, as if testing the word. "I remember trees. Water, a small dog?" "Yes, Bin, our little terrier. He would sleep at the foot of your bed." Something softened in his altered eyes. "I want to go home," he said finally. Lara's comm unit crackled urgently. "Major, reactor stability is failing." Quinn reported. "We have less than 5 minutes before critical breach. I'm evacuating to the shuttles now." "Understood. Prepare for immediate departure." Lara turned to the team leaders. "Load everyone you can. We're out of time." The evacuation accelerated to a frantic pace. Children were hurried aboard the shuttles with minimal organization. Resistance fighters carried those too weak to walk, while the older children who had broken through their conditioning helped manage the younger ones. Lara guided her brother to the second shuttle, keeping a hand on his shoulder as if afraid he might disappear again. Around them, the facility began to show signs of imminent failure, lights flickering, structural vibrations, the distant sound of alarms. "What about the rest?" asked a fighter, pointing to the holding chamber where thousands of children remained in stasis. Lara felt the weight of command like a physical burden. "We can't save them all," she admitted. "Not now, but we'll come back for them." The third shuttle was still loading when Quinn arrived, running from the direction of the reactor control room. "We need to leave now," she shouted. "The containment fields are collapsing." "Final count?" Lara asked a team leader. "Just over 900 children evacuated, 6,000 still in stasis." 900 out of 7,000. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. 900 futures reclaimed from Zelthian control. "Launch shuttles 1 and 2 immediately," Lara ordered. "Shuttle 3 completes loading, then follows in 2 minutes." As the first 2 shuttles lifted off, Lara supervised the final loading of the third. The facility's deterioration was accelerating, entire sections of corridor collapsing, environmental systems failing, emergency lights casting an eerie red glow over the scene. "Major, we can't wait any longer," the shuttle pilot warned. Lara did a final check. "Everyone aboard. Take off." The shuttle rose shakily, its system struggling under the strain of exceeding maximum passenger capacity. They cleared the docking bay just as massive sections of the facility began to collapse. Through the viewport, Lara watched as energy discharges rippled across the surface of Camp 47. The Primus Flames effect, amplified by the destabilizing reactor, was tearing the facility apart at a molecular level. "Will the reactor explosion destroy Titan?" someone asked anxiously. "No," Quinn replied, monitoring readings on a portable device. "The quantum cascade is actually preventing a true singularity by dissipating the energy across multiple dimensional planes. The destruction will be localized to the facility itself." As if to confirm her assessment, a brilliant flash of blue-orange light erupted from the center of Camp 47. The shockwave rattled the shuttle but didn't knock it from its escape trajectory. "All shuttles, report status." Lara called over the comm. "Shuttle 1, 32% power loss but maintaining flight capability. 312 children aboard." "Shuttle 2, operating at nominal capacity, 297 children, including your brother." Lara felt a moment of relief knowing Tran was safely away from the facility. "Shuttle 3, we're overcrowded but stable. 321 children plus 15 resistance personnel." As the shuttles climbed through Titan's thick atmosphere, Lara moved among the children on her vessel. Most were quiet, still processing their sudden liberation. Some cried silently. Others stared with those unnaturally bright eyes, watching her movements with a mixture of fear and hope. A small girl, perhaps 6 years old, reached out and touched Lara's hand as she passed. "Are you taking us to Earth?" she asked in a small voice. "Yes," Lara replied, kneeling to meet the child's gaze. "Do you remember Earth?" The girl shook her head. "I was very little, but they couldn't make me forget my name. I'm Sophie." "Hello, Sophie. I'm Lara. Where are my mom and dad?" The question struck Lara like a physical blow. How many of these children had parents still alive? How many had families who had been searching for them for years? And how many would return to find nothing but graves and memories? "We'll help you find them," she promised, knowing it might be a promise she couldn't keep. "When we get to Earth." Quinn approached, her expression grim. "We have a problem," she said quietly. "The shuttles don't have enough fuel for a direct return to Earth. We'll need to stop and refuel." "Options." "There's a small Zelthian outpost on Enceladus. We could attempt to capture fuel cells there." Lara weighed the risks. 3 shuttles, heavily loaded with children, attempting to raid a Zelthian outpost. It was dangerous, but they had no choice. "Set course for Enceladus," she ordered, "and begin analyzing the night web effects on the children. I want to know if there are any immediate medical concerns we need to address." The journey to Enceladus was tense. Many of the children began experiencing withdrawal symptoms from the neural suppressants used in the stasis pods. Some became feverish. Others suffered seizures or hallucinations. The resistance fighters, with limited medical training and supplies, did what they could to ease their suffering. Quinn worked tirelessly, moving between the 3 shuttles to assess and treat the most severe cases. Their neural pathways are attempting to re-establish normal function, she explained to Lara. "It's like rebooting a computer that's been infected with a virus. The process is painful but necessary." Lara spent much of the journey with her brother, who struggled more than most with the transition. Years of Zelthian conditioning battled against resurfacing human memories. "I remember a festival," he said during a moment of clarity. "Lanterns on the river. You helped me launch mine." "Tet Trung Thu," Lara confirmed. "The Mid-Autumn Festival. You were 7. Your lantern was shaped like a dragon." "And it sank immediately," Tran recalled with the ghost of a smile. "I cried until you gave me yours." These moments of connection were precious but fleeting. At other times, Tran would lapse into Zelthian language patterns or demonstrate behaviors that had been programmed into him during captivity. Once, He tried to access a control panel, insisting he needed to report to processing before Lara gently restrained him. When they reached Enceladus, Lara assembled a small strike team from the least exhausted fighters. The plan was simple, but risky. Land one shuttle at a distance from the outpost. Approach on foot. Neutralize the minimal Zelthian presence, and secure enough fuel cells to reach Earth. I should go with you, Quinn insisted. No, Lara countered. The children need your expertise more than we do. If we don't return in 3 hours, take the shuttles and make for the Jupiter mining colonies. They have human resistance cells that can help. The raid on the Enceladus outpost was surprisingly successful. The small Zelthian contingent was unprepared for an attack, having received no warning about the events on Titan. Lara's team secured the fuel cells with minimal resistance and no casualties. As they prepared to depart, Lara discovered a Zelthian communication array. On impulse, she activated it, broadcasting a message on all frequencies used by Earth resistance groups. To all resistance cells, this is Major Lara Min. Camp 47 has been destroyed. 900 children have been liberated from Zelthian control. We are returning to Earth. The Primus Flame works. I repeat, the Primus Flame works. They took our children, now we bring fire, and they're on their knees. The return journey to Earth was arduous. Despite the additional fuel, they needed to conserve power, resulting in a slower approach than they had planned. Food and water were strictly rationed. Medical supplies dwindled as Quinn continued treating the children's withdrawal symptoms. But there were moments of hope amid the hardship. More children began breaking through their conditioning, remembering their names, their families, their homes. They formed connections with one another and with the resistance fighters caring for them. Some of the older ones even began helping tend to the younger children, creating a makeshift community within the cramped confines of the shuttles. When they finally approached Earth's orbit, Lara expected to encounter Zelthian defense systems. Instead, they were met by a ragtag fleet of resistance vessels, modified pre-invasion spacecraft, and captured Zelthian shuttles similar to their own. Major Min, this is Earth Alliance Command. Came a voice over the comm. We received your broadcast. Welcome home. Sending coordinates for safe landing. The 3 shuttles, escorted by the resistance fleet, descended through Earth's orange-hazed atmosphere. They landed at what had once been an international airport outside Bangkok, now a primary resistance stronghold. As the shuttle doors opened, Lara was startled by the reception that awaited them. Hundreds of resistance fighters had gathered, along with civilians, parents, relatives, anyone who had lost a child to the Zelthians and still dared to hope. The children emerged slowly, blinking in the harsh sunlight filtering through the atmospheric haze. Some were still weak from stasis and neural withdrawal. Others walked confidently, scanning the crowd with those unnaturally bright eyes. And then it began. Cries of recognition, names called out in desperate hope, families reuniting after years of separation. A woman fell to her knees as a young boy ran to her arms. An elderly couple embraced a teenage girl who approached them hesitantly. Then with growing recognition, not all the children found families waiting. Many parents had died in the decades since the invasion began. Others were fighting in distant resistance cells. Some would never be matched with their original families at all, their early memories too thoroughly erased by the night web. Lara stood watching, her brother at her side, as the scene of reunion and heartbreak unfolded before them. Tran's conditioning had continued to fade during the journey, though his eyes retained their unnatural brightness, a permanent mark of Zelthian interference. Our parents? He asked quietly. Lara shook her head. They died in the first year, a Zelthian attack on the refugee camp where we were staying. Tran was silent for a long moment. Then we only have each other. Yes, she agreed, putting an arm around his shoulders. But that's enough. The Earth Alliance Council convened an emergency session in the underground chambers beneath Bangkok. Lara, Quinn, and the other mission leaders were summoned to report. The destruction of Camp 47 is confirmed, announced the Maori councilwoman, who had evidently traveled from Hanoi for this meeting. Zelthian communication channels are in disarray. Your broadcast from Enceladus has sparked uprisings in resistance cells across the globe. And the Primus Flame? Asked the Chinese officer who had been skeptical of the mission. Quinn stepped forward. The prototype was lost in the destruction of Camp 47, but I've retained all the specifications and quantum formulas. We can build more, smaller versions suitable for tactical deployment. What about the children still in Zelthian custody? Lara asked. There were thousands we couldn't save. Intelligence suggests the Zelthians are accelerating their program, replied a council member. Transports are being prepared to move all remaining children to their homeworld immediately. Then we need to strike now, Lara insisted. While they're vulnerable, while they're afraid. The council debated intensely. Some argued for consolidation, protecting the children they had rescued, building more Primus Flame devices, preparing for a larger offensive. Others, including Lara, pushed for immediate action while the Zelthians were reeling from their first major defeat. In the end, they compromised. A series of coordinated strikes would target Zelthian transport facilities around the globe, using the limited Primus Flame technology they could quickly reproduce. Meanwhile, a special research unit led by Quinn would work on developing the technology further and understanding the neurological impacts of the night web on the rescued children. As the meeting concluded, the Maori councilwoman approached Lara privately. There's something else you should know, she said. Something your friend Cathar told us before your mission. What is it? The night web does more than rewrite neural pathways. In some cases, it activates dormant abilities in the human brain, psychic potential that Zelthians plan to harness. Lara thought of the children's unnaturally bright eyes, their strange resilience, the way some had broken through conditioning that should have been irreversible. You're saying they have powers? Not yet, but Cathar believed that as they mature, as the night web programming fades, some might develop abilities beyond normal human parameters. Telepathy, telekinesis, perhaps more. Is that why the Zelthians wanted them, not just for genetic diversity? Precisely. Their own psychic abilities have been declining for generations. They sought to harvest ours. The revelation added a new dimension to their struggle, and to the future they were fighting for. If the children developed such abilities, how would they fit into human society? Would they become a new generation of defenders against Zelthian aggression, or would they face fear and prejudice from the very people who had rescued them? These questions would have to wait. The immediate task was clear: continue the fight, rescue the remaining children, drive the Zelthians from Earth. The coordinated strikes began 3 days later. Resistance cells across the globe, armed with miniaturized versions of the Primus Flame, attacked Zelthian transport hubs simultaneously. The effect was devastating. Zelthian technology failed under the quantum cascade effect, leaving their forces vulnerable to conventional weapons. Lara led the assault on what had once been Hong Kong, now a primary Zelthian processing center. The battle was fierce but one-sided. Without their advanced shields and energy weapons, the Zelthians fell back in disarray. Similar reports came in from around the world: Moscow, Cairo, Sydney, Mexico City, everywhere. The pattern was the same: Primus Flame deployment, technological failure, Zelthian retreat. Within a week, Zelthian forces had abandoned most ground installations, falling back to orbital platforms and bases on the Moon and Mars. Reports indicated frantic activity around their remaining child detention facilities, as they rushed to evacuate their assets to their homeworld. But the resistance was moving faster. Each successful raid freed more children, strengthened Earth's defensive capabilities, and further destabilized Exelthian command structures. 2 weeks after the destruction of Camp 47, Lara stood with Quinn and her brother on the roof of their Bangkok headquarters, watching Zelthian ships rising through the atmosphere, fleeing, not attacking. "They're leaving," Tran observed, his bright eyes tracking the distant vessels. "Not all of them," Quinn cautioned. "They still hold orbital superiority and lunar bases. This is a tactical retreat, not surrender. But it's still a victory." Lara insisted. "The first real victory in 10 years. As they watched, something unexpected happened. One of the fleeing Zelthian vessels suddenly veered off course, its engines flaring erratically. Then another and another. "What's happening?" Lara asked, raising her binoculars. Quinn checked readings on her tablet. "I'm detecting quantum fluctuations similar to the Primus Flame effect." But we don't have any devices deployed at that altitude. Tran stepped forward, his expression intense. It's the children, he said quietly. What do you mean? Lara asked. The ones who were held longest, the ones whose eyes glow brightest, they're reaching out with their minds, finding the quantum patterns, breaking them. As if to confirm his words, several of the rescued children had gathered in the courtyard below. They stood in a circle, heads tilted up toward the sky, their unnaturally bright eyes glowing with increased intensity. Some had their hands raised, as if physically pushing against the distant vessels. And above, more Zelthian ships began to falter, their sleek designs marred by cascading energy discharges that resembled flames spreading across their hulls. They're manifesting the Primus flame effect through psychic means, Quinn whispered in awe. The night web didn't just condition them, it changed them at a fundamental level. One by one, the affected Zelthian vessels crashed back to Earth, controlled descent mechanisms failing under the psychic assault. None fell in populated areas. The children seemed to be directing them toward empty wastelands or the ocean. In the days that followed, more evidence of the children's emerging abilities surfaced. Some could communicate telepathically with one another. Others demonstrated telekinetic capabilities, moving small objects with concentration. A few showed signs of precognition, predicting Zelthian movements with uncanny accuracy. The Earth Alliance scrambled to understand and integrate these developments into their strategy. The children who wished to participate in the resistance were organized into special units, their abilities cataloged and developed through training programs hastily devised by Quinn and other scientists. 1 month after the destruction of Camp 47, Earth forces launched their most ambitious operation yet, an assault on the primary Zelthian command vessel in orbit. Lara led a team that included 20 of the most powerful psychic children, including her brother Tran. They breached the vessel's defenses with ease, the children's combined abilities creating a walking Primus flame effect that disabled Zelthian technology in their path. When they reached the command center, they found something unexpected. General Kaler, alive despite his grievous wounds from their encounter on Titan. The Zelthian commander knelt on the deck, surrounded by failed technology, his once imposing figure diminished by defeat. Blue blood still seeped from poorly healed wounds, and his ceremonial armor bore the scorch marks of the Primus flame. "You," he said when he saw Lara, "the human who wields fire." "Not just me," Lara replied, gesturing to the children whose eyes glowed with power. "All of us. You took Earth's children. Now we bring fire and you're on your knees." Kaler's black eyes moved from child to child, his alien features showing something akin to fear. "What have you done to them?" "Nothing," Tran answered, stepping forward. "You did this to us. You awakened something that should have remained dormant. Now we control it." The capture of the command vessel and General Kalor marked a turning point in the war. Zelthian forces across the solar system began a full retreat, abandoning outposts and bases in their haste to escape the spreading threat of the Primus flame and the psychically empowered children who could wield it. In the months that followed, Earth began the long process of rebuilding. The atmosphere remained altered, the landscape scarred by a decade of occupation. But there was hope now, real, tangible hope that had been absent for too long. The rescued children posed both promise and challenge. Their abilities continued to develop, sometimes in unpredictable ways. Some struggled to control their powers, while others embraced them fully. Integration with the general population was difficult but not impossible. Families adapted, communities adjusted, and slowly, a new normal began to emerge. Lara found herself in a new role, advocate for the changed children, including her brother. She worked with Quinn to establish schools and training facilities where they could learn to manage their abilities in a safe environment. 1 year after the destruction of Camp 47, Lara stood with Tran at a memorial ceremony in Hanoi. The site, once their family home before the invasion, now featured a simple monument, a flame sculpted from salvaged Zelthian metal, eternally burning through the power of a miniaturized Primus flame generator. "Do you think they'll come back?" Tran asked, his eyes, still unnaturally bright, fixed on the flame. "Eventually," Lara replied honestly. But we'll be ready. As they watched, other children joined them, survivors of Camp 47 and other facilities, their glowing eyes marking them as forever changed by their experience. They gathered around the flame, a living symbol of resilience and transformation. High above, beyond Earth's atmosphere, a faint signal pulsed from the captured Zelthian command vessel. The Primus flame technology, combined with the children's emerging psychic abilities, had created an energy signature visible across vast distances of space. The signal traveled outward, past the boundaries of the solar system, into the great void beyond. And somewhere in that darkness, something ancient stirred in response. The eye of the lunar star, awakening after millennia of dormancy, drawn to the flame that humans had kindled from their adversity. Earth had won a battle, but the war for humanity's future was just beginning.